passion, the conviction, who you are.
You know what? I missed out on probably the biggest thing that I could probably do in my life.
What we're seeing is we move into this new phase.
Not only is he all energy,
Building on our franchise.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, Dreammaker Podcast. Just playing. All right, here we go. That was my Matt impression. That's Matt. He brings so much fire. Anyways, all right. Hey, welcome to the Dreammaker Podcast, where if you do not snooze, you lose. Looking forward to today's episode. I'm still not pajama worthy if you're checking this out. But one of the things we pride ourselves on is rolling up these podcasts and repping our snooze pajamas. Sorry you're missing out on that. But more importantly, today we have a special guest that he came in for a special visit, and we said, let's sit down, put a microphone in his face. But we have Steve Hodson. Steve is from the furniture business and for the furniture business. He is a product of this industry, has seen it for many, many years. From my understanding, really grew up in this space and now dominating in a consultant, as a rep. You wear a couple different hats. But I think what I'm excited about this episode, not only learn a little bit more about Steve and where the industry was and where it's going, but more importantly, just use the person and what kind of makes you tick. That is something that we value a lot around here. So yeah, Steve, thank you so much for saying yes to this.
Absolutely.
You came in this morning, we stuck a microphone in your face, and you said, sure, cool, let's do this. So you've been on hundreds of podcasts before, or is this your first one? Which one?
Well, actually, technically, this is my first one.
All right, nice.
Yeah, sometimes when I just talk to myself and record myself into a phone, that sounds nice.
There you go, that does work. Well, we're excited to give you an audience today.
Absolutely.
And this audience is really going to be made up of people who are passionate about the industry, are trying to figure out what's next, what innovative technologies, meaningful stories, and really, in our perspective, trying to create space for meaningful connections in an industry that really is all about relationships. And I think you and your family have embodied that for many, many years. And so I'm excited to hear a little bit about your journey. So take me back. Did you grow up here in Colorado?
I did, yeah. Well, technically born in California.
Okay.
Very shortly afterwards moved to Aurora, Colorado.
Okay.
And I don't remember, my main upbringing was in Parker, Colorado.
Nice.
And yeah, goodness, my dad has been in furniture industry forever.
Okay.
Forever, yeah.
Well, at some point in the future, my children are going to refer to me like a dinosaur, like you just did to your dad.
Sure.
So I apologize in advance. What I will say is, give us some context. Like when he's been in the furniture industry forever, help me understand the lineage and the work that he's done for many, many years, and maybe the tree that he has. It all started at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so he initially in California worked for Levitt's Furniture.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Levitt's is still around, still pretty relevant and a big deal. And he started off there from ground roots, from doing deliveries. That's what he did.
Wow.
It might have even been a little less. Should I make it more dramatic? He started off cleaning. He was mopping the floors.
Yeah, right. There you go.
But and then just kind of started moving his way up. Eventually made it to a store manager.
Okay.
And was doing great there, and then had the opportunity, was presented with working for Ashley Furniture, for being an independent sales rep for Ashley Furniture here in Colorado.
And this is when Ashley was already a monster, or when they were just starting out?
This was a growing, he kind of caught it as they were growing.
Okay.
Big time, yeah.
And so he's been with Ashley in that capacity. Give me a quick, explanation of day to day. Like what did he do for all those years, or does he continue to do?
So and the job is pretty much the bones of it have pretty much stayed the same.
Okay.
But initially he started off in the whole territory was actually Colorado, Utah, Idaho, and I think there was even some Montana involved in there. So he had a lot more space. Space to cover than like we do right now. Yeah. And so day to day. I'm a consultant, right? And him and I are both consultants, both for furniture and how to sell the furniture and everything like that. And so that's pretty much what he's been doing for years. But it's as if we're talking a day to day, it's going in, seeing people face to face, trying to keep as good of a connection as you can, because you mentioned it there. This is a relationship
Yeah.
business. The product, there's a lot of furniture out there. And so having the relationship and the ability to, explain the product in a good way, in a way that makes people trust you, basically. Not in a deceiving way. We're not pulling the wool over anybody's eyes on anything.
Right.
But still,
A lot of education.
a lot of education.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, clearly, he's modeled how to do things right. In our experience with you, you've been just an incredible advocate for who we are, what we do, and during a complex time, you've got creative and ways to support us. And I think that, when I hear, your dad having that level, and what's your dad's name?
Eldon.
And I met
yeah.
Eldon, I think at Market or very nice gentleman.
Definitely.
Clearly cares about his business and his customers, and cares about the industry. And I think that's palpable in the way you operate, right? And so I think about as a parent now, you're much more caught than taught.
Definitely.
So in that sense, help me understand. You've been in this role 7 years or so, where you've been, professionally after you got done with college, entering into the same space, and you work within your dad's framework, right? But take me back to maybe because obviously you're spanning times when the furniture industry is ridiculous, like it is right now,
Yes.
and you're also spanning times where the furniture industry is really, really struggling.
Yeah.
Right, and people aren't buying homes; their homes are getting taken away. They're not furnished, buying furniture, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So let's go to that time. Do you remember a time where it was his practice or his company struggled because the furniture industry is struggling?
Absolutely, yeah. So, my first recollection of it, I was just in high school, but it was 2008, right? And everyone knows 2008, that major recession that affected specifically homes, right? And where people were having all kinds of mortgages and probably more than they should have been allowed. All of a sudden, that was all gone. And so I do remember my mom and dad, I didn't really notice it. My dad's a pretty well prepared guy. He doesn't spend above his means or anything like that. So while the sales and those commission checks probably got pretty small, we were ready for that. But or I should say he was ready for that, right? Yeah. So those were scary times, but since then, it's been pretty good. It's been pretty steady. Yeah. And Ashley just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, Ashley's obviously a monster. I mean, you're talking during COVID, 2020. They grew up $1 billion or something like that.
Yeah, huge amount.
And can't get product. I mean, really having challenging supply chain issues, like many folks in the industry. But obviously that's an incredible success, right, of an organization that's just been chugging along and working intentionally to build and scale and all that kind of stuff. But your dad's been a critical part of that. And I think of, how to dodge so many of those shots, when things are really tight. You have to be good. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times in a lot of industries, people had to pivot and, move in a different direction. But he was able to, continue to swim upstream and get to a point, right? There's that idea of tough times don't last, but tough people do. Mm-hmm, and definitely. So clearly you get to see that. And now you are having success within the industry, within his organization. Help me, from your perspective, what do you think the biggest lesson he's taught you about to be successful that's translated to your success?
Boy, what a great question. I think about from early on. I remember one time, because I would actually travel around with my dad when I was 10 years old, right? He'd bring me into the furniture stores and everything like that. And I remember there's a few times he taught me a couple different things. His main thing is total transparency, right? He wanted to be so honest. So, for example, a typical sales call with a really old school furniture dealer, right, is laying down sheets of catalog paper, right, with the picture of the product on it, kind of explaining what it's made out of and everything. And they say, yeah, write me down for one of those. I'll take one of those. And and I remember there was one time we got out of one of those and he mentioned to me, we want to get out there and make our quotas and do our things. and try to sell as much as we can. He goes, but I never want to sell something to somebody that I know isn't going to work for them.
Okay.
And so he said, if they ask me my honest opinion, I'm going to give them my honest opinion, even if that means having to say no to a sale. Because you think about what that does, that's trust, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you do become a consultant because you weren't just a yes man, you weren't just a yes salesman all the time, right? And so, boy, that was such a huge part of it. And my dad's relationship with people, so this is part 2, my dad's relationships with people is just unbelievable. You know, I travel around with him even now, and people say, boy, you are working with, or I should say working with, and also I'm a son too, one of the best in the industry, and just a good person. And boy, it's it's hard to teach being a good person, right? Because that comes from,
you have to model it.
You have to model it.
Clearly he's done that because you've been so incredibly giving of your time and expertise to us, and back to that consultant point, right? Where you are now, and I'm guessing I'm trying to figure out in our space now, because here you are, that's a lesson you learned out on the road when you were a kid with your father, that he's going to not only sell, product that's going to work for the end user, the consumer, but then position it within a team or organization that he knows can move that product, right? So it's not just, hey, this is the latest and greatest. If it doesn't fit on their floor, it doesn't make sense to their style or what they believe in, then he's going to steer them in a different direction. So that really is in that coaching consultant role. And so do you find yourself doing similar, interactions with your clients?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I love it.
Yeah. No, and you really have to, take it on a case by case basis. Yeah. And the more you understand the person and their customers, because that's ultimately who we're selling to, right? While we're talking to store owners, we are still selling to the end consumer. It's you just have to take your market on a one-on-one approach.
So do you feel like, most people, I'm sure, even your friends from college or people you meet now, when you tell them what you do, they're like, what? They don't get it. Like,
Totally.
What do you do? I don't understand it.
Right.
So let's give us, if you were going to talk to somebody, let's say I'm coming to you and saying, hey, Steve, I want to do what you do.
Yeah.
What would you tell me? Sell me on the position. Tell me good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah. So it's funny because even in college, I figured this was the direction I was going to be heading in. And so I'd stand up and introduce myself. Yeah, I'm going to get in the furniture industry. And I graduated in a career in marketing, right? And so, or I'm sorry, with a degree in marketing, thinking that's probably what I was going to do. Yeah. And ultimately, when I got to know Ashley Furniture and become a consultant, so here's some, I guess, selling points for what I do, right? Yeah. I do more than just furniture. I actually have relationships with, digital marketing companies, website companies, things like that, and print advertising, things like that. Finance companies, absolutely. And I've built these relationships with them so that, hey, initially, I'm coming in for furniture. That's going to be your main squeeze. Let me help you get more out of what you do in your store by doing these different kinds of things. So that's amazing. I love that I can build relationships that way. Another side of it too is for better or for worse, I do make my own schedule for the most part, right? Yeah. For better because that does have its benefits, right? To be able to take a day off if my daughter is sick or something like that. For the worst though, because if I'm not getting out there, then that could affect things, right? Yeah. And so I've really had to learn to monitor my time and my schedule really well, and I've got it. Sometimes I think I've got it down, right? Yeah. But that's a one part of the job that I really appreciate too. So.
And can you make a good living?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
it's been really good for me and my family. I have a wife and 2 kids, by the way. I don't know if I said that. Yeah,
no,
wife and 2 kids.
I haven't got there. But clearly you're doting, so tell me about your wife.
Oh, well, I love her. Yeah, she's great. Yeah, my wife, Kelsey, been married about 7 years. Okay. And so, she's been with me through it all.
Yeah.
And have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son.
Nice.
So
keeps you busy for sure.
yes.
So
Yes.
then, do you work weekends now? What does that look like?
Here's what I usually say: if someone calls me, then
Yeah.
I'm working.
Okay.
So I'm working whenever someone is out selling my product.
Yeah.
So that's whether that's being on the phone or taking phone calls, helping enter in orders, whatever it is. I being there to support
Yeah.
my businesses. And that's actually something my dad taught me too, by the way. That's my a dad-ism.
Dad-ism, yeah.
If you're working, I'm working.
Yeah,
So,
there you go. No, I love that. And obviously your partners appreciate that and feel that because, I mean, talk about the challenges. I don't even know. I mean, that's a whole nother thing, right? You're working within an organization that just grew $1 billion during a global pandemic, and there's ridiculous supply chain issues.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't even know. It gets to a point where if I'm a salesperson and I've called you, hey, Steve, what do you think I can get this? Oh, I'm here in, 4 months, let's say, right? 4 months, you're going to have it. Month 4 comes, I sold it to my customer. Hey, we'll have it to you in 4 months. Now it's month 6, and now I'm calling you. Hey, where's this at? And I'm guessing this has been your reality for the past year.
Yes.
But talk about how you've navigated that in a way that's protected relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that, what a great question too, because this has not been easy for anybody, right? Talk about the most said thing during COVID. This hasn't been easy, right? No, there's hardly been an industry out there that hasn't been affected by it, right? But yeah, as the demand went absolutely through the roof, all of a sudden everyone was trying to get their hand on products that no one was anticipating. And so all of a sudden we ran out fast. And so, Ashley Furniture is an incredible company and they reinvest like you wouldn't believe. But I guess how I've navigated through it is, it's actually kind of the same thing, always picking up the phone, because what people want to hear is the truth, right? What's actually going on.
Yeah.
And sometimes we know the answers, sometimes we really don't. And it's not that we don't want to know the answers. It's that how do you pin down one chair that hasn't been delivered, right?
Yeah.
But always picking up the phone and trying to do something about it. Honestly, that's to hold a relationship. That's what I've tried to do. Realizing too that people are gonna go get furniture where they can get furniture.
Yeah.
I want these people ultimately to stay in business in the long run, not just for my benefit or my pocket, right?
Yeah.
But it's because that's their livelihood too. I work with a lot of small businesses, and so just showing that I care is one thing, and being their advocate where I can, but also teaching people to do business in a different way than they've done it before. It used to be where a lot of people really thrived off of special orders.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful method. And Ashley was so fast at delivering special orders. That's changed though.
Yeah. Nobody wants to touch it, right?
No, it's scary. It's scary because you're like, hey, when do you think this is going to be in?
I don't know.
Shrug.
Right.
Yeah. Your guess is as good as mine. Right. And so, that being said, people have had to change the way they've done business in the past, that they got used to doing business with a lot of furniture vendors. And so, actually having product on hand to sell to them.
Yeah. So there's a couple lessons that you dropped that I want to make sure we capture for the audience.
Yeah.
Number one, you sell with integrity. You started this conversation with talking about, hey, transparency, the lesson your dad taught you, right?
Yeah.
So when you find yourself in a difficult challenge, rather than tell somebody what they want to hear, you tell them what they need to hear. You tell them the truth, right?
Definitely.
And I think that I want to honor you because, I relocated from the Bay Area over here to Colorado. And I had a fairly sizable furniture order, and it was through Ashley because that's what I could get at the time.
Absolutely.
Right? There were supply chains, and you guys were delivering stuff. There were a number of items that either came in damaged or we missed the left legs on a chair. I needed a right one. There was some back order stuff, and every time I reached out to you, man, you responded. You were super responsive, right? So you said pick up the phone, but you were responsive via email. Stuff would hit my house, and I knew that you had solved that problem for me. So now again, people may say, well, hey, you're an up and coming force in the industry or whatever. So of course he's going to take care of you. But it wasn't that energy. It was like, you're going to take care of everybody. It was very clear to me when you were responding to me. It's like, this is how you operate, right? We're just going to get things done. We're going to, here's where we're at. This is the best I can do, but I'm advocating for you, right? I'm doing what I can. So there's no doubt that that's the recipe for your success. So transparency and being responsive. And then I think, so I appreciate that, but I think a big point that I want to make, this has been an interesting ride that we've been on here at Snooze, right? With so much, we've had more interest than maybe we anticipated. I anticipated. Matt, this is all part of his master plan.
Right.
This is exactly what's supposed to be happening. But I think that what I find, what I've really respected about you is from day one, you said yes to the relationship with Snooze. We had one store in Pueblo West, and you gave us, you didn't know who we were or where we were going at the time. You just were excited about, here's a small business owner that's getting in this industry. Hey, Matt's a good dude. Let's figure this out. And you threw everything at us. And it wasn't easy. Like, I think the behind the scenes stuff, people in the industry will understand, but to become a preferred vendor for Ashley, or let's say it's Tempur-Pedic or Simmons or Serta, whomever, right? There's a relationship and trust. There's some vendors that will put you open up, a shed and they'll let you sell from it. There's other vendors who we choose to partner with that take pride in the way they operate. They take pride in their brand. They take pride in the end user experience. And that's a different conversation to be a approved vendor, right? That's a different pathway and journey for small business owners. So take me back, if you don't mind. Take me back to when you and Matt first started, and how, what you saw in him, why was easy to support, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, holy cow. So this is, we're already 3 years. I think that was 2019. Yeah. I think that was when he first opened up. So, I actually met Matt. I think he reached out to Ashley Furniture, and just said, hey, I'm interested in becoming a vendor. And so I went down and just had an introductory meeting at Snap Fitness in a conference room there, right? At the largest Snap Fitness, right? Isn't it the biggest one?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And so met in his conference room. And holy cow, yeah! So that was the first one, and he's already had mattress experience from his previous career and everything like that. And so talking to him, and I knew he wasn't any chump, right? He wasn't just some guy who's like, Ashley is an easy product to sell. Let me sell it, right? But he told me what he was doing, and I went over before the Pueblo West Snooze Mattress was finished, and he walked me through there. And holy cow, talk about a guy though who is so personal, right? Yeah. And personable too, to where all of a sudden I just got get wrapped up in it, and you get pretty excited about it. Yeah.
And he tell you who's going to take over the world.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but I like, I've had some people talk pretty big game before, right? Yeah. And it sometimes turns into something. Most of the time it doesn't, right? Yeah. And so I just kind of kept following my I don't want to say following my instincts, because this is all Matt, right? I don't want to give myself much credit for for his success or anything like that. But
he would allow you.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah. What a guy. Yeah. But anyway, just kind of kept following him along, and all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, we're gonna franchise, and holy crap, we're opening up 2 new locations in Colorado Springs." Right. And all of a sudden he's actually growing. Yeah. And it's like, well, I better let's keep going, right? And So anyway,
to your point around, hey, I don't want to take credit for Matt's success. None of this happens. Nothing great is ever accomplished alone. You know what I'm saying? It really does require meaningful partnerships, and I think that you've definitely been that for us, and that you've not only, it takes a certain level of belief and enthusiasm on your end to see, okay, this is where they're going. This is how I can support them, and this is what I can do. And when we need something, you're responsive, right? You're transparent in the way you communicate. You show up, right? You're here when we need you. You've connected us you've leveraged your relationships you've worked so hard to develop, and introduced us some really great people in the industry, from finance to, other vendors, things like that. So you're I mean, you're doing it right, and it's clear to see that you're in the game for the right reasons, and that you're definitely an extension of the legacy your dad's worked so hard to build, right? So, and I know you're clearly your dad's favorite, but do you have any other siblings?
Yeah. No, yep. Four older siblings.
Okay.
And so I'm the runt of the litter.
You're
I'm the end
baby.
of it.
All right.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
So.
And are they in the industry at all?
Nope, none of them are.
Okay.
And I'm, I think my dad kind of each gave him a chance, and it finally got down to me, and I was like, sweet. And I can't say that. I had a couple siblings that did get into it a little bit, but not currently, not presently in it. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's obviously. So there's 5 of you. Yeah. That and your mom's clearly got to be some force of nature,
superhero,
right? She's really got to be the behind the scenes rock and help me understand from, because you're definitely, your demeanor, you're just a sweet person, right? You're just a kind individual. But is that from your dad or is that from your mom? Help me understand what lessons your mom helped shape over the years.
Oh, well, holy cow. Yeah, I think probably about as close to a mama's boy as the whatever the Urban Dictionary definition of mama's boy is, right? Yeah. And I probably shouldn't say that. Who knows what the actual Urban Dictionary definition that is. But anyway, holy cow. My mom is just a good, kind person. Believe it or not, my mom actually was in the position that I'm in right now with my dad.
Oh, no way.
She worked for my dad as well for years. I can't remember, probably 6-7 years, something like that. And so she actually did what I did, and she loved it. And I frequently travel around, and people literally still say, "Oh, I miss your mom. Your mom was awesome." And it's like, don't worry, I'm just right here.
Right. Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But my mom is the same thing. Good, kind person, and she'll go to bat for you if you're good, right, and everything like that. She's awesome. She's amazing.
I love that, and I think that it continues a theme here of just the industry. Where Matt and I worked previously in the industry, and I had one other stop with an organization out in New Mexico, furniture industry, and good people. And then we were a little sheltered in it from our previous, organization we worked with, just because they lied to keep, distance between reps and vendors and the internal sales team, right? So very, and strategically, I think that worked for them. But as now we're on the other side of this and we're going to industry shows and going to market and we're getting proximity to the people that are really in this industry for many, many years and have shaped this industry, just good humans. Yeah. Right. Just a lot of really great people. And I think that's a theme that I get most excited about, is that you're no exception, right? I mean, you are a wonderful human being, but you're not, you fit right in. It's not that, and not to say there's not people in the industry that aren't wonderful. Of
course, every industry.
Great,
yeah.
Right. But all in all, it's a pretty good industry to be a part of. And so, you've seen the progression. Do you see that the new, let's say some of these, we joke about some of these folks that have been a part of the Levitt's family, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm from Tucson, Arizona, and they have, a store down there, right? Sam and their family. And so there's definitely been, people that have been in this industry for many, many years and families that have dominated. But as you see new players emerge, what are you seeing? What's the theme?
Yeah. So, goodness, probably the hardest things. I work with a lot of mom and pops, right? And in a sometimes a very literal sense, it's literally a husband and his wife doing the whole operation. And it's hard for a lot of them to come up and do a lot of the new things that the furniture industry is doing now. Yeah. Having a website all of a sudden isn't like making you stand out anymore, right? Whereas a little while ago, it's all of a sudden it's like, hey, just have a website, have something that starts with or ends with a .com, and you'll be pretty set. But now you have to have a great website to stand out, right? And so, but things like that, they're just, for some people, that just doesn't compute. That just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't.
It's not their native language.
Yeah, absolutely, and not faulting anyone. It's hard, right? Yeah. Change is hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's things like that, and the way you interact with your customer now has changed, right?
Yeah.
Someone's probably already done all the research on you before they've even walked into your store.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you building a relationship with the customer even before you've met them is a hard thing to tackle, a hard thing to navigate. And that's where the up and comers, people like Snooze, right? They're getting that.
Yeah.
And that's incredible to watch.
Well, I appreciate you seeing that. I mean, we're very intentional about creating that consumer experience before they ever hit the store, right?
Definitely.
We got to win them there. We got to develop trust there. We got to give them good information. We have to, let them know what the in-store experience is going to be about, and really meet them based on their problem, right? We call that verticals on the Wake Up side.
Right.
Here's this vertical: somebody sleeps, hot, the partner sleeps cold. Okay, well, that's one whole story and a problem we got to solve, and how we communicate and engage that individual in the digital space really sets us up to win when they come into the store, right? And solve their problem in a very authentic way. And what's even cool, something I appreciate on the back end of what we're being very intentional about as well, is that consumer experience does not stop after the point of purchase.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And we're continuing to nurture them and, keep them a part of our community in a way, and giving them an experience that they can champion. Because at the end of the day, it's still, we can talk about mom and pop and, but, if you're a mom and pop in Iowa and you've been there for 40 years, word of mouth is what built that business.
Absolutely.
Well, now the conversation is just taking place in a different environment, right? So you got to make sure that you give the tools for that conversation to still take place, and that word of mouth to continue to perpetuate your business forward. So yeah, I love that, and I think when let's go back to this morning then, right?
Yeah.
Because you've obviously seen where we started and where we're at,
Right.
And this is your first time into Wake Up.
First time
to Wake Up. And so now you're in a Wake Up, and tell me your experience this morning. What happened at 9:05?
Goodness. Well, sometimes I wasn't sure where I was going to walk into, right? I saw a couple different doors to walk into. I walked into the Snooze door. That was the familiar one. And so I walked in there and right away saw people that I knew, and goodness, they just like swept me right in, and
Did
I
you bring
said
donuts?
No, I didn't.
Man,
That's the one,
epic
the
fail.
rep failure. That's the one thing reps are supposed to do.
You had one job.
The donuts. But yeah, walked right in, and Aaron started giving me a tour right away, and right to the main room where all of a sudden people were clapping and Matt was yelling, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was great.
And so we go into our 9:05 meeting,
Yeah.
which is obviously high energy.
Yes.
We were a little. There were a few of us that were a little salty this morning, so there was a little bit of
I didn't feel that.
subversive energy going on this morning, but we still had fun with it.
Absolutely.
Right? And then not only, we're 10 seconds done with the meeting, and Matt's over there like, hey, you want to do a podcast?
All of a sudden. Yep.
Sure. But now here we
I couldn't
are.
tell if he was talking to me or not. Just got here.
Yeah, right.
It's great though. It's amazing.
It is, but I think that speaks to, as there's the idea of like, hey, you're willing and you say yes and let's do this. That transparency. This is a new form of it, right? So this is a modality of a podcast to our demo, right? Here you're a furniture rep, and there's going to be people in the industry that are consuming this content and trying to learn about you and what your lessons are and what they can apply to their own, work life to, help, perpetuate their own success. But this is that new level of transparency that, the small mom and pop's business owner, they don't think in these terms. They don't think that people are going to want to sit and listen to this. But the fact is, everybody's got a commute, right?
Yep.
And they want to listen to things that, is in their wheelhouse. And if they're committed to continuous growth and improvement, they know that, they can learn from anybody, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that's 7 years in the industry or grew up in the industry, or somebody that's been in the industry 40 years, right? There's lessons there. So in that same energy, what do you feel like, you seeing the evolution of the industry, what would you tell a mom and pop's small business owner that what steps they need to take to protect their success and protect their space in their community?
Boy, what a great question. Honestly, the thing that I really believe is that the principles of selling, those are foundational, right? And you have to look at the principles different than the hows, right? Because people a lot of times rush right into, okay, how are we going to do this before they back up to the what and the why, right? And so for the mom and pops or anyone who's just getting started and maybe doesn't really know, if you know how to sell, the hows are going to come about because they're around, and you notice them, things like your Google reviews and things like that. You talked about word of mouth, Eric. Goodness, that you're absolutely right. Reviews have actually always existed. They just happen to be on the internet now, right? Exactly. And so those principles of selling, those are all the same, and people aren't, customers are smarter now than they've probably ever been. Yeah. For better or for worse, right? Yeah. But that makes a difference too. And so when your customer comes in, you're not trying to, don't oversell anything. Mm-hmm. Sell it exactly for what it is. And if it's an amazing product, goodness, then it's that much easier to sell, right? Yeah. And so for in that context, I think it's probably a really important point.
Yeah. So I hear you say reputation management. Yeah. Be deliberate around capturing, testimonials, making it visible. Right. Right. Taking your Google reviews seriously, putting some energy behind that. But it all starts, those are tools. Right. What starts is being a sales-driven organization. Yeah. Right. Making sure that you're hiring people that can sell with, that can quickly develop rapport and trust with the customer. Huge. And then solve their problem, right? Yeah. But solve it with confidence and don't overpromise. Right. We're obviously in a unique landscape right now. Yeah. But customers are forgiving. There's nothing that they're going to hear, to your point. They're not walking into your store uneducated. Right. They've done a lot of research. They know what's going on in the industry. They hit the industry. They're prepared. So speak to that. Meet them where they're at, right? Yeah. And don't oversell anything. So I love that. Absolutely. So as we look to kind of wrap this up and put a bow on this experience, and I'm honored that this is your first podcast. You're doing really well.
Appreciate that, yes.
Yeah, for sure. But I knew it. Yeah, at the end of the day, you're a good human, and that's going to come across in any modality, right? So just getting the space for somebody to gain proximity and see how you think. And, this is, I think, a beautiful expression and tool for somebody like you. So let's talk about, why... what do you see happening moving forward in the industry? Like, what's going to change? We got supply chain issues. Are you hearing that those are going to go away soon? Or are you hearing that that's going to continue to be a theme until 2023? Like, what are you hearing?
Great question. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, there's not much getting around it. You have to stay optimistic though, right? Because it's real easy to get down in the weeds and be like, oh my gosh, how much longer are we in this for, right? Yeah. Because it is a supply chain issue. There's nothing you or me or your customers, no one can yell loud enough to fix these problems, right? No bad Google review is going to fix it. Right. And so staying optimistic through it, because it is going to get better, right? Who knows when though, right? It's and I don't even dare say anything on here, right, as far as when I think it's going to get better. But I know it will, because it has to, right? There's too many hardworking people that are doing a really, really good job to try to fix these problems. Yeah. That are, moving the industry forward. I mean, there are things and ideas coming out right now that were maybe in the works that all of a sudden they're like, wow, this would actually be helpful now. Yeah. And so investing in incredible, technology to help fix the supply chain issues. Yeah. And so, moving forward, stores and things like that are eventually going to be able to get back to whatever we wanted to call that was normal, right? But in the meantime, though, keep your head up, keep selling, right? Because ultimately, it's your business, right? And just staying optimistic through it, and having faith. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about faith-driven things on here. Absolutely. Right? But things are always going to work out because we got someone who's watching out for us, right? And who cares about each person, each store owner individually, right? And that's amazing. Yeah. So with that, you're really well connected with so many different small business owners. Yeah. What are they doing to make it through this difficult time? Yeah. Great question. Sometimes I wonder that too, exactly what they're doing. For the most part, it has to do with being being able to, when they can get their hands on product, do it, right? Even if you're not quite ready for it, you have to play the long game now. You can't rely on just like, oh, hey, I have inventory for 2 weeks. Okay. You have to have inventory for longer than that, and have orders in for longer than just planning 2 weeks out. Yeah. And so it's so much being future minded, and making a plan for what you're going to do, in many, many months. And that's not easy to do because with the supply chain issues, there's always something different coming up. Right. And so being able to pivot where you can, and make changes where you can, do it. Right. Yeah. And you got to follow your gut sometimes too.
Yeah, and I think with that, you can, the other part of that is that you're dialed into many of these small business owners. It's okay for them to rely on each other and ask for help, sure. Right? And because nobody knows what they're going through other than somebody else is going through it, right? From the same perspective. And so I think that, from that sense of community, and this industry is full of really incredible people. Definitely. But being that conduit for connection, if somebody wanted to reach out and connect with you or had unique challenges, where could they find you? Yeah.
So obviously, do you want me to share like my social media
social
hits?
Handles or
I have to
email.
look it up.
Yeah, right. We'll put it in the comments below.
Sure. Yeah, the comments below.
Yeah. But I mean, if that's easy, is it LinkedIn? Is that a good place?
LinkedIn is a great spot for me. Yeah. I think I'm under there as Steve Hodson, not Stephen Hodson. Okay. And it's a dorky little picture of me in the Las Vegas showroom with my tie all up to my neck and everything. Perfect. So it's good.
So Steve Hodson on LinkedIn is a good place to connect.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I think that thank you for who you are in this industry.
Appreciate it, Eric.
You give your dad a high five from us for raising you right, and your mom, because I know she gets most of the credit.
All the credit,
right?
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, most of the credit.
But I mean, the thing is, and I think this is what gives me hope, right? You talked about optimism. The key is when you're going through difficult times with good people, problems become. The solutions will become evident.
Definitely.
Right. So I feel good about, we have a partner like you. There's people like you in the industry that can, support the navigation of some complex times. And the last question that I'll hit you with is when you think about where a new up-and-comer can go, like Snooze, or somebody wants to start their own, mom and pop store, is there space in this market for somebody to pursue and become a force, or is it closed out? Is the opportunity there?
Opportunity is always there. Holy cow. Yeah. If people are buying it and you notice that they're buying it, right, then there's this space and needs that need to be met. Right. And so, I heard someone once say like, if you're willing to take all the risks and the money and everything like that to start your own business, that's great. And if you're willing to do that, that's awesome. But if not, follow somebody's model, right? And take some of the guesswork out of it, still make money, still make a great living, right. But have a great framework for it. And that's what you guys are doing, right?
Yeah,
and that's what's incredible.
Yeah, the franchise, definitely, I think that franchise model, not only with Snooze, now we're biased and we feel really confident in where we're going and what the impact we're going to make. But the franchise model really is a brilliant model for folks that want to get in, own a business, make an impact in their local community. Yeah. Maybe have some national branding, but localized connection. Yeah. Right. So I do love that. And I appreciate you speaking to that. But all good things, man. This was, hopefully this was enjoyable for your first experience.
Yeah. It was awesome.
You'll be back at some point in the future.
Sure. No, this is spectacular. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate it,
man.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Good.
That's a wrap. Need anything else, J-Rod? You good? Sweet. Thanks, guys. Great job.
Beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So I heard you're interested in starting a podcast. Interesting. And you're probably wondering, do I have what it takes to start my own podcast? Do I have the studio? We've got the studio. Do I have the editing skills? Do I have the ability to post it? Do I know how to do that? You're probably wondering through all these things, and it can get a little overwhelming. I know, I've been there. Trust me, I've tried to start some of my own before I got connected with Wake Up. And I know that that's tough, especially when you're trying to run your business. You're trying to be in your business. Well, I'm here to tell you, with my help, it'll be a breeze. Hey, I'm Ben Kaysen, the podcast director from Wake Up Pueblo. You may have seen us on the Discovery Channel. We were a part of Undercover Billionaire with Grant Cardone. And if there's one thing we learned from Grant Cardone when he was here, it's that if you want to be heard, you need to put yourself out there to be listened to.
Hello and welcome to Wake Up Podcasting. I'm Ben Kaysen here at Cardone Capital, enjoying the awesome studio. Thank you for joining us.
Me and the 10X crew, we want to make sure that you have a successful podcast series within your budget. Don't worry about the editing software or the equipment. I got you covered. Just bring your guests and what you want to talk about, and we'll handle the rest. This is Ben Kaysen. That's a wrap. If you want to work with me, give me a call.